2012 in Ireland was marked by various events and developments. The country faced economic challenges, with ongoing austerity measures and high unemployment rates. The government continued efforts to stabilize the economy and attract foreign investments. The European sovereign debt crisis also impacted Ireland, leading to a referendum on the Fiscal Stability Treaty. In politics, the Fine Gael Labour Party coalition government faced criticism over budget cuts and social issues. The Irish presidency of the Council of the European Union began, focusing on job creation and economic growth. The Irish Olympic team achieved success at the London Olympics, winning medals in various sports. The year also saw significant cultural events, such as the Titanic Belfast opening and the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Irish television station RTE.
Well, Quigley is 105 years old. As a boy, he was among the thousands who watched the Titanic being launched here at the Holland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. 100 years after her maiden voyage ended in disaster, Cyril joined Northern Ireland's first and deputy first ministers for a simple ceremony marking the opening of the Titanic signature building. Almost 100,000 people have already pre-booked tickets for the attraction, which tells the story not just of the Titanic, but of the industrial and maritime history of the city that built her. People travelled from far and wide to be among the first to see the venue.
I don't know, we saw the movie and we are interested to see the museum today. That's it.
We saw it on the news last night in Dublin. It was on the news and it just looked amazing, so we said we'd come up and see it today.
The exhibition is spread over 6 floors and features 9 interactive galleries. Those who visited today were impressed.
It's really informative. Yeah, you learn a lot.
I didn't realise.
If you didn't know about it, but we learn about it in school as well. So it's brilliant just to. Yeah, it's fabulous.
I very much enjoyed the ride and the fact that they sort of took us up the different levels and the hammering in of all the wee nuts and bolts and things. That was really amazing.
The opening of the building marks the start of a special Titanic festival, which runs until the 22nd of April. Sharon Gaffney, RTE News, East Belfast.
So, Michael, I'm curious.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Pleasure. And
just if everybody who watches the programme tonight dials Deborah Ireland and goes on the website and contributes €1, they'll raise €700,000. So everybody at home, get on the Deborah website, give them some money. You can see what a great great cause is going to.
It makes a lot of sense, absolutely. Now, you've been in the news this week for several different reasons. I do want to ask you quickly: Do you have the car? Does your car have the taxi plate on it?
Yeah,
and is that
outside?
And did you buy the plate?
WH taxi. Taxi driver is up in the green room as we speak. I hope he's on the water.
He's your driver.
He's the taxi. I actually have a number of taxi drivers because the hours I keep. I need a couple. I get through a couple.
Okay, so it's your car, but you bought the plate to avoid traffic.
Bought the plate when they did it a couple of years ago. So I bought the plate. It cost me $6,000. Put it on the car. Meters, seats. The meter is going. It's about €140 from Mullingar to Dublin Airport.
And has it been a good investment for you, the plate?
It's not a good investment. Funnily enough, actually, no, because almost about a year or two after I bought it, they opened up the M4 motorway, so I almost don't need it anymore.
Okay.
But it's very helpful on the occasional trip to RTE here in the centre of leafy Dublin.
Yes.
The bus lanes are great, apart from when you run into the occasional government minister taking up blocking up space or blocking my progress.
25-cent charge on flights. Why is that?
The glorious fools that we send to Brussels every year have decided that while the climate the globe isn't warming anymore. Funnily enough, the climate is changing, and that the cure for climate change is to tax air travel from the 1st of January this year. It'll cost us about 15 to 20 million euros this year, which is about 25 cents a passenger. So we say, sorry, if you're going to tax flights, we want passengers to know exactly what the idiots in Brussels are doing.
You're on record as saying emissions are a load of bollocks talked up by sandal-wearing Greens.
Which is actually technically true. Man-made emissions. Man-made emissions account for less than about 2% of total emissions, and of those, air transport accounts for less than 2% of the man-made emissions. And yet, the problem with it is people can't understand. The media love to see a picture of a plane taking off, because you can see the contrails and you can see the globe warming up behind the airplane, whereas they never show you a ferry pulling out of the port, whereas the ferries account for 5% of Europe's CO2 emissions. But nobody ever talks about taxing the ferries. I think, look, I don't know whether there's no evidence to suggest that the globe is warming. Clearly, climate has changed. It will always change. But the one thing I'm absolutely certain on is taxing European air travel and giving the money to cement manufacturers, arms manufacturers who create far more.
And you know, there's a bunch of people watching saying, how can you say the globe isn't warming? All the scientific evidence points to the opposite and so on.
In fact, it doesn't. The globe, mean temperatures fell from 75 to 2000. They rose every year from 50 to 75, they reduced. From 75 to 2000, they rose, and they've done nothing for the last 11 years, which is why they never talk about global warming anymore. They now talk about climate change.
OK, let's move on to the subject of baggage charges. You're increasing them again. Why?
Until we get rid of checked-in bags.
Why are you so against checked-in baggage?
Because it's the greatest, most useless transaction known to humankind. Funny enough, when we started charging for bags about 5 years ago, 85% of our passengers checked in a bag. Today, 25% of our passengers check in a bag.
Yeah.
So 75% of passengers now get it. Don't come to the airport and wait in a queue for an hour to check in a bag. Don't wait at the arrival airport for half an hour for your bag to come out, unless you flew British Airways, in which case 40% of you will never see it again. Why don't you just bring your carry-on bag with you and save yourself all that
hassle? What about
hassle?
the family heading off to the sun for 2 weeks and they've got kids and bags and everything else? I mean, are they not going to feel a bit put out?
That's called Mrs. O'Leary, who now, when we travel with about 2 bags, whereas it used to be about 6 bags. It's not for everybody. Somebody will want to check in a bag. Families want to check in a bag. I know myself now. But what happens is you check in less bags than you would have before.
But is it discriminatory towards families then?
I don't think so, because families generally are travelling in bigger groups. Every time you fly with Ryanair, you're typically saving 50 or 60 euros a skull. The family saves 240 euros flying with us, and if you check in a bag, it'll cost you 8 euros.
Have you announced, 1,000 new jobs this week with Ryanair?
Yeah.
How many of them in Ireland?
Sadly, none, which is a real bugbear of mine. We'll create 1,000 new jobs this year, all of them in continental Europe. The good news for the government here and for the people in Ireland is that most of the 1,000 people will be on Irish contracts. So they'll be paying Irish tax, Irish PSRI, they'll be contributing to the Irish state. But none of them will be based here, because all of our bases this year are being opened in Billund in Denmark, in Baden in Germany, in Palma in Spain, Wrocław in Poland, where governments are giving us very low-cost deals at airports and scrapping travel taxes. Sadly, in this country, we have this revolutionary new idea that we can actually grow tourism jobs by raising airport fees and taxing visitors to an island. And funnily enough, since we've been following this policy, the passenger numbers at the 3 government airports have fallen from 30 million passengers a year to 22 million passengers a year. We've lost 8 million passengers a year.
But we're hearing tourism's up 6%.
Yeah, well, the CSO figures say tourism is funnily up 6% on the basis of some CSO survey, yet the traffic numbers are down. Now, unless they're all swimming here, something's not right with the figures. Yeah. And the sad thing is, I mean, one of the great challenges we have in this country is how are we going to create jobs? Tourism is one of the great industries for creating entry-level jobs for kids in restaurants, hotels, pubs, clubs, lifeguards, everything. That's the way we're going to create jobs. You don't need degrees in it.
But if you take the travel tax for the UK is what, £12 sterling, in Ireland is €3. People could argue it's competitive in Ireland.
You could argue it's competitive. The problem with the UK is the travel numbers and the air passenger numbers have fallen visitor numbers down 25% since they doubled it from 5 to 10 quid about 5 years ago. But the UK has a huge population base, 60 million people, huge domestic travel. Just because the UK introduced a stupid policy doesn't mean that we should follow a stupid policy. I mean, and the example I gave you, we elected a new government last year, 50-seat majority. Everybody wanted change and reform. We've offered the new government we would reverse the policy, we would deliver Ireland 5 million additional passengers. You know, because in a country that's lost 8 million passengers in the last 5 years, we deliver 5 million additional passengers. It would create 5,000 jobs in and around the 3 airports. All we want is scrap the tax and reverse the airport fees increases. And sadly, what happened? The new government did what the old government did, commissioned a consultants report. The consultants report were unsure, so then there was a high-level study group, and they were unsure, so it went back to the civil service.
It's all in the course of a year.
And lo and behold, at the end of it, we don't think that's a very good job.
Okay.
But we're committed to job creation.
What do you think of the government, the new government? It's not that new anymore, but what do you think of them anyway?
I think you'd have to say, over the space of 12 months, they've made a number of they've made some sensible decisions, like scrapping the Dublin Airport Metro, which was mad. But they haven't delivered much change and reform, and we gave them a mandate to deliver change and reform.
Early days, they might argue?
It's a year, you're there a year now, and new governments, you get change and reform in a government in the first year or two, the first 100 days.
What would you do in your first 100 days?
There needs to be root and branch reform of government spending. I mean, the real problem is relatively simple in this country. We have a national spending every year of about 55 billion, and yet we have income of 35 billion. So we're basically borrowing 20 billion a year just to stay afloat.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable.
So what would you do?
Cut the spending.
Where?
Everywhere. I mean, there's almost no business, there's no household that can't, at the start of a year, say we're spending too much money, we're spending more than we are, we've got to cut by 5 or 10%. Okay. If we cut 5 or 10% off our national spending, that'll be 5 billion.
How do you rate Enda Kenny?
I think that in the first year, I think there's been too much of copying Bertie. It's running around being popular. He's a very nice man, but running around being popular is not what we elected you to do. Run around, make decisions that create jobs is what we elected you to do. And I'd like to see more decisive job making and a lot less running around.
And how are you getting on with your relevant minister, Leo Varadkar?
I think he's I've met him now three times. He's very impressive. He's very young. It's his first ministerial position.
Is he too young?
I don't think you could ever be too young. The youth generally tend to be a bit more revolutionary than the old people like me. But the experience of the first 12 months hasn't been great. We're a bit too fond. I mean, the problem with the Department of Transport is they're like the downtown office of the DAA at the airports. And it's not just me. The Chief Executive of Aer Lingus this year said that Dublin Airport's charges were insane. That was the word he used. We need change, but it's not going to come if you allow consultants' reports after consultants' reports, because we didn't elect consultants. We elected Enda Kenny, Leo Varadkar and the rest of the government to make change. And sadly in tourism, where you could create enormous amounts of jobs, there's been no change over the past 12 months.
Did you always want to work in the airline business, or did you fall into it? What was the ambition when you were younger?
My ambition when I was younger was to play for Manchester City. Sadly, for most of the past 20 years, I probably could have. Now, sorry, they wouldn't want me. No, I grew up like everybody else. At a certain age in my childhood, I wanted to play football. Realised fairly early I wasn't good enough, so I'd have to work. And after that, I just wanted to work. Yeah. I had a great time in school. I had a great time in college, like everybody else did. But I'd had enough at that stage, and then I just wanted to work. And I wanted to work because I wanted to make money. I wanted to make money to secure my family's future. And after that, have a bit of fun. And boy, am I having fun.
Did you? How do you rate pilots? What do you think of pilots?
Pilots do an extraordinary job. And you don't appreciate a pilot until you've seen them land in fog, where you don't, and you're travelling at 500 miles an hour or 500 miles an hour, and you don't see the runway for 100. You only get 100 metres notice of the runway, which is not very. And they do a phenomenal job. The problem with a lot of pilots, though, is they're not very productive. There's a legal limit across Europe, which pilots can only fly 900 hours a year, which is about 18 hours a week. So they're generally bright, they're very well paid, and an awful lot of them are very bored. And so they're either very good golfers, or some people would tend to, they have other extracurricular activities that they engage in. But they'd be better off.
I don't know where you're going with that, but I've a rough idea
myself.
Yeah.
But I mean, in Ryanair, one of the great successes in Ryanair is we create the schedule around pilots and cabin crew so that they actually fly almost 900 hours a year. It's still only 18 hours a week. So. Yeah. But they work hard, they're very productive, and they do, in Ryanair, a terrific job.
You would charge a pilot £50 sterling to apply for a job with Ryanair?
We do, but if you get the job, if you apply and you have the qualification, you get the job, we give you back the 50 quid.
So why do you charge them in the first place?
Because we got fed up receiving CVs from 8-year-olds and 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds in Middleton and Blarney, who, when they grow up, wanted to be a pilot. And, thanks very much, but apply to us, when you're 22 and you've actually 250 hours under your belt. Yeah. It's just to get rid of all the flim-flam and the crap.
You've described Aer Lingus pilots as overpaid, underworked peacocks. Why peacocks?
I've only met one who's the head of, occasionally, who's the head of the Aer Lingus Pilots Union. Look, I think the problem with Aer Lingus is not a very productive airline.
Yeah, but why peacocks?
Because they're very fond of their hats and their caps and all the status symbols, and get out and go and do work. Pilots are glorified taxi drivers. It's a very complicated taxi, and they are very skilled to be able to do it. But at the end of the day,
you paid them a great compliment landing in fog, and then you just slapped them across the face.
But like, it's a job. The job is providing a service for people who want to travel from A to B. And the problem in Ireland for many years, up until about the mid-1980s when Tony Ryan set up Ryanair, was you couldn't get on and off the island because everybody was being charged 200 quid in old money, which today would be about 800 euros.
Yeah. Are Ryanair pilots peacocks?
No, they're brilliant. Ryanair pilots are hard-working, disciplined. Genuinely, they're really good guys because we don't tolerate an awful lot of the peacock nonsense that goes on.
I want to ask you about some of the stories that I've read down through the...
They're untrue.
Yeah, I want to know. Actually, I want the true or false. Seriously, now, don't be acting now on this one. Just tell me the truth.
They only want to know if there's a free ticket for everyone in the audience.
Yeah.
There is.
I want to say to you, Michael.
There is.
Michael, the pantomime.
He's trying to get off this. Don't go home without the free Ryanair ticket.
Hang on a second. The panto season is over. Did you really want to charge to you?
Share and subscribe.